and appreciate you joining us this morning for another one of our seminars and webinars that we've actively been doing since the COVID-19 pandemic and the shelter-in-place order. On behalf of our board and our staff, I just want to let you know that we're here working very hard behind the scenes, advocating on your behalf at all levels of government and continuously trying to find resources to provide you the information, the tools that you need during this very fluid time of COVID-19, the shelter in place, and the resulting economic crisis. Our webpage, our COVID-19 resource page, is constantly being updated with new information and resources. So please make sure you check that out at www.thesbo.com. Today we have SBO member Spectrum Business Financing, and their principal, Wendy Roberts, will be providing clarity and updates on SBA and other various loan resources available for small business. We realize that the payroll protection loans and the other disaster loans are currently unavailable, but we do want to discuss what may be coming up here in the future and how you can pivot your business to move past the pandemic. Just a couple of housekeeping issues. Today's webinar will be recorded, so we should have it back up on our website later today. And to ensure that we have a productive dialogue, we do have everybody muted upon entry. Monique is the keeper of the mute button, but everybody's muted upon entry. And if you have questions, please make sure you go ahead and put those into the chat box. Feel free to make them available so everybody can see them. And as we move through the program at the end, Wendy will do her very best to answer those questions during the Q&A portion of the event. So with that, I'm going to open it up. Let's jump into our program, and it's my pleasure to introduce Wendy Roberts. She is the CEO of Spectrum Business Financing. And Wendy, we know that all small businesses, right, are the heart of every community.
Right.
It's our main streets. It's the backbone of our economy. We're thankful in Silicon Valley. We got all these big tech companies, right? And they're still working behind the scenes. But you know, right now, many small businesses that were thriving, 4 or 5 weeks ago, are now just struggling to keep their doors open. So thank you for being here with us this morning. And why don't you go ahead and take us through the presentation that you prepared this morning? And I know things are fluid and continually changing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it in your good hands, and let's do your presentation, and then we'll get to the Q&A portion. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you, Monique, for this great opportunity. I really appreciate it. As Matt says, we are in challenging times, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here so we get to the presentation. And hopefully you can see that screen.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as Matt mentioned, everything is evolving. It's changing weekly, if not daily and hourly. So the information I'm presenting here today, I'd like for you to continue to monitor the government websites, as we are expecting updates here, hopefully this week. So today we're going to talk about setting up your business for success in today's environment. We'll discuss some SBA loans, as well as some other opportunities that we'd like for you to consider. I think no one could have predicted this epidemic, let alone the impact it's had on the United States and the world economy. As Matt has mentioned, it has a dramatic effect on small businesses. Many of our businesses have closed their doors, or they're forced to weather out the storm. And employees, they've got to be able to pay their bills, and they are struggling paying bills with rent and putting food on the table. So the SBA has introduced 2 programs to help small business during this time of the coronavirus. The first one is called the EIDL, or the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Now, this loan was actually part of a previous type of loan that, let's say, for example, there might have been a hurricane in Florida or flooding, let's say in the Midwest. But they enhanced the EIDL program and brought about some interesting aspects to this loan to help small business owners during this time. Also, they introduced the Paycheck Protection Program. It's called the PPP. As a result of the CARES Act, this act was unprecedented. We've never had something like this in the past. And there's some additional programs that are offered by the SBA. There's the 7A and the 504, as well as the express loans and express bridge loans. We'll talk about all of those today. So the EIDL loan. This loan is actually, you can get loan amounts up to $2 million. And you can see the date range here is pretty much for the entire year of 2020. The rates are 3.75% for for-profit entities and 2.75% for nonprofits, with terms for up to 30 years. Most of the businesses in our community will qualify for this particular type of program. They've actually relaxed the qualifications or the requirements, as well as payments are being deferred under this program. Normally, the SBA requires personal guarantees, but these guarantees for this type of loan have been modified or eliminated. And what's a new feature of this particular EIDL loan is that up to $10,000 will be treated as a grant, not debt. So what that means is for every employee of $1,000, you can get an employee per thousand for $10,000, up to $10,000. Now the EIDL loans are offset against the PPP, which we'll talk about in just a minute. And one thing that does set this one apart from some of the other loans are that you apply directly through the SBA.gov, and I gave you the address here. Now, as Matt mentioned, both programs have run out of money, both the EIDL as well as the PPP that we'll talk about. However, there's a lot of talk now on Capitol Hill. We're looking for these two programs to be funded here, hopefully by the end of the week or the next week. Now let's talk about the PPP, or the Paycheck Protection Program. These loan amounts are a little bit higher than the EIDL. They're at $10 million, and the interest rate is at 1%. This is unprecedented. It's very inexpensive money. You can get deferrals for up to 2 years, and for up to 1 year, and you have a payable for over 2 years. So the personal guarantees have been eliminated, as well as collateral, and there's no payment or prepayment penalties on this one. Now, some of the specifications on this loan is that you have to have 500 or fewer employees, and sole practitioners, as well as contractors and certain nonprofits, are also included in this program. Now, another interesting thing about this program is that certain amounts are available for forgiveness of debt, and we'll talk about those in just a second here. Now, this program was done to be based strictly on working capital. Now, what's working capital? Working capital is the payroll, and what you can see here is just your regular payroll, your sick, your medical leave, as well as some other costs such as medical benefits and retirement benefits. And then you can also include in the working capital amount for your loan request is rent or mortgage interest and utilities. Now, the calculation of the actual payroll amount is that you want to take your 2019 payroll, or if you had a shorter period in 2020, divide that by the number of months, and in this case, my example is 2019, divide that by 12, and multiply times 2.5. Now, the salary is capped at $100,000 per person, and of course, the loan is maximized at $10 million. Now, one thing that we want to also point out here is that you do need to go through a particular lender, an SBA lender, which we'll get to in just a minute. But that is what's different between this one and the EIDL program, where you are actually applying directly to the SBA. Now, what's not included in the payroll calculation? So if you have an employee whose principal residence is outside of the United States, you cannot include that in the calculation. As well as what I mentioned before, anyone above $100,000, you got to cap it at $100,000. And then you cannot include the different types of taxes, such as withholding, FICA, Medicare, state withholding, etc. Also, as part of the CARES Act, the government passed what we call Families First. And this particular act gives you credits for payroll for wages that you've actually paid for sick leave and family leave. So you cannot include this in the PPP because the government sees that as double dipping. And then one other thing that has changed over the last couple of weeks is that independent contractors can now apply on their own, so you cannot include them in your payroll calculation. So some of the documentation that's required, we're advising people to have this information on hand when they're contacted by their SBA lender. And that is your 941s. Those are your quarterly returns, your annual return, which is your 940, your payroll reports, which might come from ADP or your QuickBooks or whatever system you use for calculating payroll. And we also recommend W-2s. So for individuals who are sole proprietors, of course, you're going to need to produce your income and expense to show what draws you're taking out, as well as 1099s. For those individuals who are going to be signing as an authorized representative, you will need to produce your driver's license and Social Security card at time of when requested by the lender. Also, email addresses will be required for anyone who owns 20% or more of ownership in the organization, as well as a copy of the check so you can get paid. So as I mentioned, you file online to get in queue with a particular SBA lender. Now, this can be a bank, a credit union, or it could be what we call fintech, which are private equity companies, or it might be as a non-bank entity. So here I've done a comparison so that you can take a look at them side by side. So the EIDL, again, is capped at $2 million versus the PPP at 10. The interest rates for the EIDL are slightly higher at 3.75 to 1%. And you do see the terms are longer for the EIDL loan at 30 years to a little bit over 2 years for the PPP. Both of them share there's no fees or points or prepayment penalties, as well as personal guarantees have been eliminated. Now, the difference between the EIDL and the PPP, up to 10K would be treated as a grant. So in other words, that you do not need to pay back. That's based on $1,000 per employee for up to 10 employees or $10,000. As mentioned on the PPP, all or part of the loan might be forgiven. And that is the part that's considered working capital. And you do need to meet some specific requirements around keeping your employees on their payroll staff up through June 30 of 2020. You will then go back to your lender and provide that information to them so that they can determine how much would be forgiven in this loan. Now let's switch over to some of the other types of programs that the SBA has. These have been around for a while. They do not have loan forgiveness. They do require personal guarantees, but they do have a little bit more flexibilities in the amount. So the first one is the loan size for the 7A. Now the 7As are used for working capital. You might use them for business acquisition or perhaps equipment financing, as well as real estate. So these loan sizes are between 50K and 5 million. It terms out at 5 to 25 years. The rates are variable, so it's going to be based on the prime plus percentage points, depending on the lender that you go with. And you require 10% or more will be a down payment. Like I mentioned, personal guarantees will be required. These are usually if you have real estate, the government likes to have a stake in a particular real estate, such as your home, or maybe you have a second home. And right now, as part of the CARES Act and as part of the situation that we have right now, if you currently have an existing 7A loan, it's eligible for 6 months of deferral. As well as if you get a new loan, that new loan under the 7A would be deferred until September 27th of 2020. So in other words, you have to get the loan within that time period through September 27th. Also the 504, now these loans amount are much larger. As you can see, it goes up to $25 million. These are more eligible for real estate transactions, as well as large equipment loans, such as cranes that we see on top of our buildings here in downtown San Jose. These range between 10 and 25 years. The rates are usually fixed, and the rates are usually a little better than what's on the 7A. Normally there's a 10% down, but depending on your credit worthiness and the type of loan that you're getting, they might require you to put down a little more than 10%, maybe 20 to 30%. Personal guarantees are also required, and these two are eligible for deferral. Now, a couple of other loans that are out there from the SBA. The first one is an SBA Express. That loan size is up to $1 million. The turnaround time is 36 hours. The rates are variable and collateral is required in most cases with no loan forgiveness. There's also an SBA Express Bridge loan. That loan is up to $25K with a turnaround of 36 hours. The rates are variable and no collateral is required as of this time. And I do encourage you to make sure that you reach out to the SBA or update yourself on the websites just to see if this is actually going to be changing. And if you get an Express Bridge loan, they will offset that against the EIDL loan. And I should mention here too, there are certain vendors or certain lenders, that are using these types of loans. So you do need to check out. And if you need some help finding a particular lender, we can help you with that. Now, so there are other loan options to explore. So the California iBank, Governor Newsom has allocated $50 million for loans up to 50K. Now, this program should be coming online this week. I've given you the website here, ibank.ca.gov. You can go out there and see whether or not it is actually in operation right now, but they do hope to get that up this week. Also, there's the California Disaster State Guarantee Loans. Those options are up to $1 million. Now, there's also a CalCap. This is the California Capital Access Program for small business. They offer loans up to $5 million. They are lender specific. So you do need to go out to the CalCap website and choose a lender and start working with that particular lender on the CalCap. Now, on a national level, the Federal Reserve has announced Main Street Lending Program. They offer loans for different amounts. I encourage you to go out to the federalreserve.gov, to this website, and see whether or not you're able to be qualified for these loans. And lastly, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has loan options at savesmallbusiness.com. They actually started accepting applications yesterday. I do encourage you to go out and see if you can get this loan. I think this got some good options. So I will say some of these loans, if not all of them, if you're not eligible for the PPP or for the EIDL, you would be eligible for some of these loans. Now, what are some of the actions that you can take now? I encourage everyone to please apply for all of these loans that are out there, but don't just rely on the government or the state of California to help you out. You do need to reduce your cash outlay to extend your runway. We're going to weather this out. We do not know how much longer that's going to be. So deferring hiring or capital expenditures, don't spend money where you don't need to. Curtail your discretionary spending. So in other words, if you have controllable expenses, or if you have, let's say, payments coming out automatically, turn those off. Look to see whether or not you can perhaps eliminate that spending for the time being. Reach out to your lender or your landlord to negotiate rent or loan abatement. I have found working with my customers that many landlords are accommodating. They're wanting to work with the renters and the lessees. Also, San Jose has been very taking initiatives around this particular area to help small businesses. Contact your vendors to confirm your supply chain availability, as well as offer discounts to customers to ensure their loyalty. So when you do reopen, you already have your customer base intact. Another thing to offer, another action I think that we could offer here is updating your cash flow weekly. That is very important. I know sometimes we might do it maybe monthly, maybe we only do it semi-annual or annually, but looking at your cash flow forecast weekly will help you plan ahead. Evaluate and refine your business plans. Maybe you only look at your business plan once a year. Maybe you need to look at it more often and update it and maybe recalibrate and re-innovate. Invest in yourself and your employees. as well as be transparent with them. Let them know what's going on. You know, the EDD has been very good about helping employees, have them reach out to the EDD, as well as if you have independent contractors. And if you are an employee, sorry, a sole proprietor yourself, you can start reaching out to the EDD at the end, towards the end of the month here. Determine whether you can accommodate multiple revenue streams. This is very important in the fact that perhaps you can use a particular product or service and maybe rediscover it. For example, I have a home stager who actually is one of our customers. We do strategy planning with her, and she's actually recalibrating and looking at virtual staging as well as original staging, because she can't stage right now, but she's looking at virtual staging as a way to recalibrate and re-innovate her company. Get financing. We know it's tough times. Reach out and get the financing and apply for the SBA loans. So how to prepare for tomorrow? Look for new ways to innovate. I mean, as I mentioned, I talked to you about the home stager. I have another customer who's actually renovating the way he does business. He's actually creating an online store for his products that he was using in his particular business, but now he's creating an online store for that particular products. Develop a 30-day and a 90-day plan. I cannot stress this more. 30-day plans and 90-day plans. Figure out what you're going to be doing when we're ready to reopen the economy. Focus on your increasing that cash flow wherever you can. It's going to be very important after we can start doing business again. And I think we've all figured out there's a great way to do things on social media, like Zoom meetings and Uber conference. I think that might be something we're going to be doing in the future. And I want to also stress, think about how we do business. It's changed. Like I mentioned, we're now doing Zoom to adapt more to our networking meetings, etc. And then look at your business internally. Now's a really good time to look at your processes and systems to see whether or not you need to make some changes. And I'm going to make a comment here about net profit margin. There's a particular program that we use with our customers that we look at the income statement from the top down, but also from the bottom up. Creating that net profit margin so that you can plan for when the unexpected happens, such as, for example, today with a pandemic. You put money away, you put it away into a bank account that you forget about, and then you've got that money there for rainy days, or if things are doing really well, then you can pay yourself a bonus. But this would be calculated after all costs, including paying yourself and, of course, the taxes that have to be paid. Focus on your customer and how you will reach out now, today, and when you reopen. And evaluate how you're spending your marketing dollars and look for opportunities to improve. So maybe perhaps you want to improve your digital marketing. That might be ways to be able to do that versus what you were doing before. And have a plan, and you can make this part of your 30-day plan or your 90-day plan. Have a plan to bring back your employees after the shelter in place has been lifted. And most of all, stay positive and focused. Today is now a time to be able to figure out ways to improve your business and not get locked down in what was in the past. Let's make it a positive experience and move forward. And I have a quote here from Winston Churchill. He's one of my favorite leaders. Never let a good crisis go to waste. So I want to put here that we're here to help you. We're offering a free consultation to help you review your case. We'll let you know whether or not there's an EIDL opportunity or a PPP or some other type of SBA loan. More than happy to help you with that. Also, I wanted to talk about, this is a little bit about my experience, and I actually work with a partner. He's got over 30 years experience in the business. Also, I wanted to reach out to those of you, our company, Spectrum Business Financing, we run a very ethical practice. We pride ourselves on that. And I wanted to mention that there are people out there that are preying on, unfortunately, I'm preying on people who are desperate. And there are a lot of fraudsters out there. So if at any time that you happen to come across someone who you think doesn't sound right or whatever, please pick up the phone, call us at this number. We'd be more than happy to help you, guide you through those turbulent times here, and also, to let you know that there are reputable companies out there that are doing business lending. It's the banks, the credit unions, what we call the fintech. We're in a position to be able to help you navigate those waters. And with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Great. Thanks, Wendy. And I'm reading my news feed, and it sounds like there is a deal that's been reached between the Senate and Congress on a new SBA package. I'm trying to find out what the details are coming out, but it sounds like it's just kind of happening. So
fantastic. See, as we were talking in this webinar, right, up to date hourly. An hour ago, we weren't even talking about it. It was only potential. So that's great, Matt. Great to hear.
I don't know the details of it yet, but let me try to research it. So there's a couple questions online. Laura, I see that you asked a question about just signed a PPP note. The language indicates the signer is jointly and severally liable on the note. So no personal guarantee. It's a little bit deceiving.
Yeah.
SBA explained the difference, and is that language negotiable? And by the way, Laura is from the Lincoln Law School.
Well, I maybe should have her answer that question, since it's a legal issue, and I'm only a CPA, so So I would reach out to the lender. There are debt forgiveness, and again, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, you do need to keep records. You do need to show how that you had a stability in your employment base. Go back to the lender and show them that documentation. They will determine what amount is forgiven.
Okay. Somebody asked about Main Street loans. You did mention the Main Street loans. What size business should be considering those loans?
I encourage everyone to go out and apply. Go out to take a look at all the websites. Every company is a little different in what their needs are. So I would suggest to go out and take a look. And if they have any questions, they feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to help.
Okay. And Amy had a question. Can nonprofits apply for these other loan options?
I think, yes. So take a look at the iBank. I believe the iBank is accepting nonprofits, certainly the EIDL as well as the PPP. Those are eligible for nonprofits. And there's probably, I didn't do a lot of research for nonprofits because I'm more focused on for-profit entities, but do Google it. There's probably a lot of grants out there for nonprofits. And in fact, I think I heard about one grant for Spanx, the Spanx founder. I believe she's offering grants.
Okay. Just interesting, and maybe this is a question too, Wendy, is the SBO, we applied for an EIDL loan the first day that they were available, because I recognize we're going to have some challenges down the road. Didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks, and all of a sudden over the weekend they ran a credit check on me.
Yes.
And that was because they required my personal information as the president and CEO. And then yesterday, our accounting manager said a $10,000 deposit showed up in our account. Yet we've heard nothing from the SBA.
Yeah, great.
Is that normal?
They are overwhelmed.
Okay.
And so are the lenders. So to give you an idea, normally the SBA does about $30 billion in loans a year, right, in a 12-month period. With the CARES Act, they were dealing with almost $350 billion, right, $349 billion. So they were working fast and furiously. I think it was $10 billion for the EIDL. So it's not uncommon. I actually had someone email me today and say, hey, I just got my EIDL loan. They did a credit check on me on Sunday, and I've got the money in the bank. And so I got someone else that emailed me to say, hey, thanks, I got the PPP today. So they are working through the applications. I will provide you for the EIDL loan. Let me give you the telephone number for anyone who has questions. about that, okay? They are going through the EIDL loans. You may not be hearing, you know, like you said, Matt, communication. But if you are interested in where you are, the number is 1-800-659-2955. And so you can call there and see if, you know, where you are with the EIDL loan. And I will say too that, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we had it. Sorry, I'll let you finish. We have more questions I wanted to get to.
Okay. So on the PPP, the lenders are going through those as well. So if you're in the queue, they're probably asking for information, et cetera. So I do know they're working very, very hard and long hours. You know, I'm asking for people to have patience, but if they're concerned about their PPP, then call the lender where they applied and get information from them of where they are in the queue.
Okay. We had a question from Brian. If I have a current SBA loan, are they doing loan abatement?
So is that, well, it depends on what type of loan it is, right? If it's a PPP, they can, right? If it's a 7A, it's a deferment, or a 504, it's a deferment.
Okay, so if it's another SBA loan, they are doing some deferments.
They're doing some deferment under this new program. Now, the express loans, those are not, there's no debt forgiveness on those.
Okay, yeah, Brian says it's a 7A loan. So.
Okay, yeah. So it's a deferment for 6 months if he's got an existing one.
Okay. Bob had a question. How does PPP work for a sole proprietor with no other employees?
Great question. So you actually would apply just as you would if you're a sole proprietor, you're Schedule C. So they're going to ask you information such as what your draws are, your income, your expense. Go ahead and apply with your lender. Obviously, you have to do it online. And once they open it up, based on this new information coming from Matt, then they should have the EIDL and the PPP open back up again for you to apply once the funding is in the bank, so to speak, with the SBA.
Okay. With 6-month deferral for a 7A or PPP loan, my assumption is interest continues to get accrued per month, and once they need to start paying, will they owe everything, correct?
So to answer the first question, the interest does accrue. And on the deferment, I believe it becomes on the back of the loan.
Okay. Excellent. Other questions from the group? While the group might be thinking of other questions, and I'm unable to research what's happening at Congress and Senate because I'm busy being on a webinar with you.
Yeah.
I do want to refer you both or everybody. The California iBank website is up. I did go on that while we're on the phone. It is up, and you apply directly through those lenders that are approved by California iBank. Are listed on the website, so you can apply through that process. The Federal Reserve Main Street Lending Program, as Wendy said, that is up and running, and it pretty much applies to anybody who has 10,000 employees or less. So I'm sure most of you that would fit into your category. Also, yesterday there was Facebook has announced that they have a new grant program. It's for small business employees. I think you have to have at least 2 employees, and it's $4,500. It's not a lot of money. $3,000, I think, or it's $4,000 total. $2,500 of that is cash, and another $1,500 in Facebook ad credits. That is an application process that's open through the first week of April. And it's a competitive process. They're focused on loans really for women-owned, veteran-owned, and minority-owned businesses. And it's not a first come, first serve. There's actually an application process where you demonstrate the need, and you'll need to articulate what you would do with the $4,000 if you actually got the money. And they will evaluate those applications and then release money in about a month. So it's not an immediate hit. But if you want to be thinking longer term, they are going to release about $15 million for the Bay Area alone. And then Wendy mentioned the U.S. Chamber. That website is up and taking grant and loans applications. All of these loans and grant opportunities are listed on our COVID-19 business resource page at the SBO.com. So just go to our application process. And Melissa, you're right. I see your comment on the U.S. Chamber. Not all zip codes qualified. And when I went on, I didn't think our zip codes in San Jose necessarily applied. And you're typing in here, it says, Campbell was not eligible, or Sunnyvale, because we are not, candidly, we're not a low-income, financially distressed area, region. So we may not be eligible in Silicon Valley for those loans. Other questions from the group? Yeah, so we're going to see a vote, I think, today at 4 o'clock, but I'm sure we'll see more language coming out about what's in the SBA package and the new relief package here shortly. Any other questions from the group?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Just one more comment in the chat room. I did put a comment. I did put a link to a website, and I want to make sure everybody's thinking about this, especially for Wendy, as you're talking to your clients, and someone like Frank at SCORE and others. Those of you who are located in Santa Clara County, and these rules are going to apply pretty much for the 6 Bay Area counties. I put in the chat room, there's a link to the Santa Clara County Health Director of Health website, and it's a social distancing protocol. And if you are going to operate your business, whether you're operating now or as you look to open up your business, these social distancing protocols are going to apply to your business. So I would encourage you to go to that website, download that PDF, and start thinking about how you open up your business in the new norm requiring social distancing. How do you protect your employees? How do you protect your customers? How do you protect the public? And ultimately your liability? Because from what I gather with talking with our county elected officials, the mayor and others, it's going to be a slow opening process based on people's ability to meet those social distancing requirements. It's not going to be an immediate reopening. It's going to be a phased opening. So make sure that your business or your nonprofit, however you interact with your employees or your customers, you're using these social distancing protocols, because it's going to be the new normal. So I just ask you to think about that, okay? Any other questions for the group? There was one last question, how to exclude FICA and state taxes for PPL loan amount?
Mm-hmm. So it's the gross pay is what you calculate, the total revenue. The total gross pay. So you can't do the employer's FICA. You can't do the employer's Medicare.
Right. So you just exclude it. Okay. Okay. Any other questions in the group? If not, Wendy, I want to thank you for being a part of our program today, putting together all this information. And look, if all this information will be rather pertinent if they release more money for PPP and or the EIDL loans. And unfortunately, that's all first come, first serve, or it has been to date. So make sure you keep an eye out for eligibility. As you know, everything's changing daily, so we appreciate you keeping current with us. And we're doing our best to keep our members and all of the businesses in Silicon Valley apprised of what's changing. So we appreciate you tuning in with us. We do have another webinar tomorrow. We're partnering with the Cal Chamber and another local chamber to bring you, the Gilroy Chamber actually, to bring you Alan Zarenberg. He's the president and CEO of the Cal Chamber. He's also been named to the governor's Economic and Recovery Task Force. So we look forward to hearing from Alan on Thursday. And then we also have Thursday, San Jose Police Chief Eddie Garcia providing us a public safety update. And if you've never heard or seen Chief Garcia speak, you don't want to miss that because he's pretty awesome. We're very lucky to have him as our police chief. So continue to look at our website for COVID-19 updates and keep doing our part to maintain our social distancing. And I think over time, ultimately, we're going to get out of this shelter in place and we're going to be stronger than ever. Go out and have a healthy day. And thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it so much. Have a great afternoon or day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You bet. Thanks.